All right, hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. If you are just now joining me, welcome. If this is your first time, those of you that have watched for a while, you know, primarily I'm all about just doing technical talks here, and I like, teaching and discussing, various parts of airplanes and systems, all this kind of stuff. I love sharing that with people, but I also got an equally, if not a larger, passion for motivating people and just trying to assist them or fire them up, or just talk to them about, this awesome career that is being a pilot, and just try to help you if you're thinking about doing it. And I'm always encouraging coworkers that I have. I got people asking all the time, everybody from flight attendants to mechanics to gate agents to everybody, even just general passengers that I interact with during the day to day, that are all just curious about doing this job and what it takes to be a pilot, and just everybody's curious about it. So I've got a lot of thoughts and things that I wanted to share with everybody, but today I figured I'd just try to make a lead-off video for this kind of career section of the channel that I wanted to build up here. And I wanted to just talk about the top 5 reasons why the time is now for becoming an airline pilot. This is an unprecedented time in history. I feel like if you've been thinking about doing this career for a long time, you've kind of been on the teeter-totter, maybe you haven't been sure if it was really for you, or any number of things. That's probably part of the reason why you found my segment here in my channel. But like I said, I really do believe that now is the time, better than any other time, for at least let's say like a 50 or 60 year look back into the history of this career and everything that's gone on. So like I said, I put together a top 5 list of the reasons why now is the time. So we'll just kind of go through and talk about each one of those things and my thoughts on each category there, and I'll explain a few things to you. So number 5, the first thing that I can think of is the time investment that you will have to make right now is very relatively low by contrast to folks that were getting into this flying profession, let's say 10 years ago even, and moving back there for several decades. I mean, it took a long time to go through training, get those first couple initial jobs, like get your experience level up, battle your way through that first initial, truthfully, like hard, progression of those first few years of a flying career. I mean, it was a much longer road than it is nowadays. And to put that into contrast, I mean, I always tell people, I mean, you literally, today you could go from 0 time to like a high performance, like jet cockpit in 2 years. I think that's a very feasible, attainable goal. I mean, and let's just say, like, if you were able to, take the plunge and take a loan, or maybe you've got a way to finance all the training, which of course, like, I'm sure you've already figured out at this point, it is very expensive to get through, but it's definitely doable. But, let's say you could go from 0 time to within 6 months, have all your licenses that you need to go out and get a real deal, flying job. And then, let's say, even from a conservative standpoint, the next like year and a half you take to do your time building and get to your 1,500 hours and get you to that point where you can actually hire into a 121 carrier, something like a regional airline perhaps, or maybe, there's still all sorts of great, corporate jobs you can do out there. It's just a very fast track, and like I said, that is an unprecedented thing at this point in time to really like think about. And if you're you're interested in this career, like, once again, it's time to capitalize that and get going. The number 4 thing that I could think of is once again, by contrast to times gone by, at this point in time, you can actually make a livable wage. And as part of this, I also talk about flying better equipment a lot sooner on. So let's talk about both those two things. Once again, looking back like 10 years prior, early flying jobs, like, even though you were operating something like perhaps in like a little bit more hazardous of an environment, an ill-equipped plane, you're flying through weather, you're doing all this kind of really challenging flying that really didn't pay you like much at all. To contrast that, now you can go out and your year one at a regional airline, for example, you can make between $50,000 and $60,000, which is actually like a decent wage that most folks living most places in the United States here anyways could actually survive off and have like a decent life and lifestyle for themselves in doing so. And also just to like build on that, like this part about the livable, not only you're earning a livable wage, but you're flying like much better equipment a lot early on in your career. So once again, a moment ago we talked about that time progression of getting trained up, flying small airplanes for 1,500 hours, and then at that point you can go and you can jump into something like a CRJ or an EMB 175, which is once again, it took like years for folks to do this, like in times gone by. I mean, battling their way through like, piston singles and piston twins, and you get into like a King Air, twin turbine or something like that. And then you kind of step up, and you might, finally get your way to a jet cockpit after, let's say maybe 5 or more years or something was, maybe more of a typical progression in times gone by. Like I said, right now, you can be within a couple years in a brand new state of the art, like not even a few years off the assembly line, high performance jet, which is just amazing to me that you can do that. But once again, to contrast back and talking about the livable wage business, when my very first legitimate like airline job, let's say I was flying an EMB 120, so it was a twin turboprop, a Brasilia aircraft, if you don't know. I made $19 an hour my first year. That was my first wage. I think it's always funny to look back, and it's kind of a little bit of a depressing thing, but to consider how much you were making at that point in time. And it was always just we went through these things as this was a means to an end. You had to get time and experience to kind of build on and do other things. But yeah, that first year I think I made like $18,500 or something like that when I very first started. So once again, the contrast of that point in time where I was having to do a lot of other things, like on top of just that year one of flying to kind of make ends meet. It was kind of a hard stage of life, and I'm thankful that I got through it. And it really was a challenge, and there's bad and good with everything that we do in life. But once again, it contrasts that by right now, this is an unprecedented time that you could actually make a decent wage, right off the bat. Right as you get to that 1,500 hour mark, let's say. The next thing I want to talk about, the number 3 reason, is because at this point in time, we were in a stage of widespread economic health and growth in our aviation industries worldwide. So not only, a lot of what I talk about has to do with the market of things here in the United States, but of course, these things are, oftentimes like, similar, if not much more pronounced if you are flight training, somewhere around the world, in Asia and Europe, Africa, South America, wherever you're at. I mean, we are just in a point in time where, most of the world's economies are thriving. I mean, look at the aircraft manufacturing that's going on right now, the demand for pilot. I mean, everything is in this expanding mode. And, if you've watched the airline industry for a while, you probably know, things can be very cyclical, and you certainly want to get in and, on the upswing of a wave and ride that as far as you can, so that if things, take a downturn, hopefully you're in a better place with your career and you won't have to worry about, getting furloughed or losing your job, or, maybe your company going out of business. So all the more reason to kind of jump in and do this right now. It's just, like I said, it's unprecedented, the amount of growth that's going on right now. It's just really an interesting time in the industry. Another thing, so to couple on to like, not only are things like growing and expanding right now, but at least for all these United States carriers here, the retirements are through the roof. And if you just go on and Google like airline retirements, through the projections or like through the years, I mean, the big 3, for example, so United, Delta, American, they're going to be retiring, I want to say like about like half of their whole pilot force within the next like 10 years, which is just insane. I mean, these are big companies that have somewhere between 12 and 15,000 pilots on property. So you imagine like half of those guys just completely being gone out of the system. I mean, what that means is for somebody like you that, you're just jumping in, you're just starting now. You are going to climb that ladder and build seniority. You're going to have a much better life. You're going to make a lot better money. You're going to become a captain. You're going to be operating different equipment, going all the places and doing all the things you want to do with your career in a much quicker time period than, once again, you contrast that to, guys that, if you were in the industry, guys and girls that, hired on, 10 or 20 years ago, I mean, they sat for like 20 years as a first officer on a narrow body kind of thing. And that was just like the state of time, unfortunately, where they were at in the game. And it's just, like I said, it's crazy to see the throughput of the system right now, to see how fast people are upgrading and see how fast like people are hiring on, even moving through that regional flying stage of their careers and getting onto major mainline carriers. I mean, it is crazy right now. And it is just something that you really should capitalize on, because, who knows how long this phase of, things will last. I mean, they talk about, the need and the demand for pilots like lasting out a very long time into the future. And I think that will be the case, but, we just never know, if, things economically change around the world at whatever point in time they do. I mean, these things do affect them, but as I said, once again, the key here, if you haven't picked up yet, it is an unprecedented time to, make these moves and try to do these things and take a stab at this career. And the very last reason that I could think of, and it may be kind of like a cheesy, corny thing to say, but like if you're here and you're watching this video to this point, like you've probably got a passion for doing this job. You love airplanes, you love flying, you love the idea of it, and if for nothing else, you should do this now because it's your dream, and there's no better time than the now. I've seen countless friends of mine, kind of dabble in it and think about it, and before you know it, they're midlife, they're doing other careers, they never actually took a stab at doing the flying thing, and there really is like no time like the present. I mean, that's like the one thing in all of our lives that money cannot buy. It's just time on this earth and time to like go out and do the things that you want to do. So, like I said, the power of now kind of thing. Like now is the time to do this and get after it if it is your dream. Don't put it off any longer. And like I said, the whole kind of setup of this career, it is that the earlier and the sooner you get in, the better off your life becomes and the better ride you have through this whole situation, because it's a seniority system, and because like a lot of it depends on the time that you put into the career in general is what derives these other positive aspects that come out of the career. So like I said, you got to do it now. If you're thinking about it, don't put it off any longer and just jump in, take a crack at it. And worst case scenario, what I always tell people about flying anyways is, if you decided to leave your job and take a crack at it and do it for a couple years and it wasn't working out for you, it is much easier for you to like transition back into, let's say, the corporate world or whatever other job you were doing. You can pretty much like jump back onto the train like wherever you left off, and probably make similar money and have a similar standing in the company, depending on what type of industry you're in or what position you were doing. But the flying, by contrast, is something that you can't exactly do that. So the longer you put it off, like you can't like get on the train and get off very easily and kind of pick up where you left off. So it's just all the more reason to just like get in early, give it a try. If it's not for you, you can do something else. But by contrast to that, if you waited like most of your life, and don't get me wrong, there's certainly a lot of second career type of people that come out and do this work. And like, I think it's awesome that, people find the gumption to do that at whatever stage in their life, to kind of circle back and revisit those passions they had. But they will tell you to come in and start this job as a 40 or 50-year-old person. It's just a little bit more of a challenge, and you just have less time to put into it. And therefore you're going to have a different experience than a guy that he knows what he wants. He's 18, maybe early 20s, and he or she just kind of buzzes right through it, everything. And they're a captain before they're 30, on a high performance transport category airplane. So just a real contrast of the type of career that those two people will have. So that wraps things up. I hope you guys got something out of this video. My intent is to continue making things that are kind of career track oriented for you, because I really do have a lot of passion for motivating people and just kind of educating you and talking to you about everything that I can pass on to you and share all that I know about this career for everybody else to kind of follow up and benefit off of. So if you like the video, like it, comment down below, subscribe. If you have ideas of other things you want to see discussed on this channel, please mention those, because it will help me build this content here. So thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.